Hello, resilient leaders. I'm Katie Glenn, and I am thrilled to welcome you to the Resilient Controller podcast, where we embark on a journey of discovery through engaging and authentic conversations. Thank you for tuning in and being a part of this community. In every episode, we're on a quest to unveil the true essence of resilience, that magical quality that helps us bounce back stronger than before. We're not just talking about it, but we're diving deep into real, candid conversations that spark inspiration and fuel that inner fire to stay resilient on our journeys. I am thrilled to introduce Brent Hipsher from Transamerica, a distinguished leader in the financial services industry. Throughout his career, Brent has demonstrated a relentless pursuit of knowledge and commitment to continuous improvement. He leveraged each stage of his career as building blocks to position himself to take on new roles that brought new challenges and learning curves. Get ready for an enlightening exchange as we explore Brent's pathway to resilience and uncover his secrets to navigating the complexities of large-scale ERP transformations and the importance of thoughtful process redesign. So grab your favorite drink, get cozy, and let's kick back for a chat that's not just about business, but about life, challenges, and the awesome resilience that keeps us going. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Resilient Controller podcast. Welcome, everyone, and I especially want to welcome our special guest today, Brent Hipsher. Brent, welcome, and thank you for joining us on the Resilient Controller podcast. How are you today?
Good. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here and talk to you today.
We're excited to hear about your career journey, your leadership styles, some of the things that are on the forefront for you. I know our audience is always keen to hear what their peers are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. I'm thinking before we jump into all of that, it would be great just to get you introduced to our audience. So maybe I will pass it to you and ask that you share a bit about your background.
Sure. I've been part of complex insurance product accounting for a number of years now. And I remember earlier on in the public accounting days being in over my head and you think I need to know more about this. Otherwise I'm not doing my job effectively. And so at that point I went and I started to study to understand kind of the core finance concepts. That's kind of been part of my career trajectory and journey to stay curious and stay interested in knowing the answer to that next question, if you will. I also did my MBA along the way because I felt like I was getting a little bit siloed within the technical areas. And so getting some more rounded out experience to get into more kind of executive roles as I progressed was also something that was needed. And I recognized that and pursued the MBA. And so that's definitely been part of my DNA over the course of my career.
What would you say keeps you motivated to stay within finance and accounting?
Yeah, I think accounting and finance more generally gives you the answers that are really needed in order to understand how and why to make the business decisions that we make. Understanding, should we pursue certain opportunity and expected outcomes related to those opportunities come from the financial effects that we're going to see. And if you just on the surface have, a table of numbers that gives you what those expected outcomes are, but don't understand where they're coming from, well, then you can't answer that next question that's important to know whether or not you should engage in that transaction. And so accounting provides insight into that. And knowing that the accounting rules are going to allow us to recognize income over a certain pattern, or that you're going to have a certain one-time impact that you feel up front. Just knowing those answers ahead of time and being able to relay that information as a way to help make decisions has always kind of resonated with me and motivated me to push forward within the accounting career path. And that's kind of what I try to use to motivate or keep people engaged within the teams that I manage too. It's moving from what to why is one of the mantras that I've tried to instill, not just focusing on what the results are, but why they are what they are, really then gives us the opportunity to drive those business decisions that we're trying to make as a company and inform the strategy thereof.
Yeah, I love that. We just published a report with the Institute of Management Accountants, and it's all around tech trends and what's emerging. And one of the key themes that came out of that report was the critical thinking skills that this profession has to continue to develop. We as a accounting and finance community can't just produce the results, the what, but we really do need individuals who can dig in and drill in to answer the whys. And a lot of that now is translating into all of the predictive analytics. And if we can answer the why of what happened historically, which I think accountants have traditionally been looked at as tell me the history, that role does seem to be shifting to where we do have to answer the why, and that helps predict what's coming in the future as well. To your point, make some sound business decisions.
Yeah, it's interesting too with AI and process improvements and things like that. There's going to be a challenge. The more that we automate, the less that you have insight into what the process is actually doing. And if that goes too far, it's going to be really challenging to understand what's in these kind of black boxes that we're setting up that's going to allow us to get to the why. So it's a little bit of an enigma that we're going to be faced with.
I completely agree with you. I think there's quite a bit coming that we got to be adaptable. We'll be resilient. Well, let's talk a little bit about you and how you've approached some of the difficult or challenging times in your career and how that shaped, who you are as a leader today. One question that I always like to ask that kind of comes to mind is if you have any examples, or could you share a setback or a failure that ultimately led to personal or professional growth for you?
I mean, there's been plenty, let me tell you that much. I feel like all the time we kind of iterate and evolve and need to make mistakes before we can really move forward. My other kind of mantra, it never hurts to ask. And so moving forward with, say, a recommendation, even if it's like completely off the wall and crazy or not what your boss or stakeholders wanted or expected, at least like getting it out there and then having the conversation and then being able to pivot is where I've been able to kind of fit in at. Well, I feel like what I've been able to do is make small failures over time that aren't necessarily failures, but they're challenging moments that you involve others in order to figure out how to move forward. And so getting other people's opinions and involving experts where needed and reaching out and knowing I need to ask for help has been core to what I've been about.
I think it takes a special person to one, acknowledge that they don't have all the answers and that it's all right to say that and to ask for help from the experts. It builds your knowledge set. But also, I think that builds a little bit of toughness and being able to be agile and, hey, look, I don't have the answer for this, but I know the right people. Brent, let's shift a little bit. I'm always interested to hear from the leaders that I have on this podcast, what's on your plate. And I know finance transformation is a hot topic in today's environment. They call it, big T, little t, depending on the scale of the transformation. There's all kinds of different flavors of transformation. I know you at Transamerica, you're going through quite a bit of transformation as well. What initiatives or how involved are you in that? How is that impacting your day-to-day? Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'd say we're going through a big T transformation, and it's been years in the making. There's dozens of smaller projects, a handful of larger programs that we have around finance transformation. It's one interesting thing. As I joined the company, there was actually a transformation office within finance, completely dedicated. And that was different than the company I was at before. And it was strange to think about because it was almost like a little bit of a turf war at first between myself and my peer about who owns what. We had IFRS 17 implementation, which is insurance accounting standards. Along with that came all sorts of model development and actuarial optimization, call it, process redesign and reengineering. And kind of the ultimate program is our ERP, our general ledger implementation effort that's now ongoing. And so the transformation office kind of owns all of those things, but as previously controller and now head of FP&A, I have clearly a keen interest on. The big effort is on ERP implementation. A lot of the infrastructure, we're spending a lot of time being thoughtful about process redesign, about kind of the reporting work streams on what we're ultimately trying to get out of the project, trying not to duplicate work across programs too. So we've got ERP with process redesign, for example, on one side, and we've got, call it operating model optimization with thinking about where different work resides across different teams, kind of working in parallel. And we're trying to make sure we're doing things efficiently from a project standpoint. So there's all sorts of stuff going on within large T transformation, but the ERP projects are front and center.
Yeah. And listen, right, these ERP transformations, they're massive. And anyone that's been involved has been on the periphery of one. It's massive. It impacts the data. I loved hearing you say being thoughtful about the process redesign, thoughtful about the reporting. We always tend to throw up all of the flags saying we have to make sure at the end we're going to get the reports that we need. So I love to hear that you all are being thoughtful and running in parallel and seeing some wins there. How do you kind of maintain your role with all the cooks in the kitchen? Any advice that you'd have for others out there?
Yeah, I think we would be just dead in the water if we didn't have a dedicated transformation team, first off. Mm-hmm. They're a little bit more, call it independent. They're trying to make sure the different stakeholders are all working together, that we don't have the turf wars that could ensue if we're not careful. They're looking at resource allocations to make sure that things are being executed the right way. That was key. The other thing that's been key within the BAU teams, really carving out dedicated resources that are the subject matter experts that can go and answer questions about chart of account design, because the transformation office doesn't have the insight necessarily. They're more project orientated. They don't know the current structure or why it is the way it is. And so it's got to be cross-functional. You have to have dedicated resources. You have to have some level of independence as part of that. And then the other part is probably getting IT fully on board and supporting it too. And then the thing that gives us support too is providing the right updates and insights into the process in our executive management meetings and our board updates. And so we don't have a lot of pressure from the board or the audit committee to do things differently per se. They're trusting the work that we're doing that's in flight because we're giving them the right level of real-time updates, I think. And that's been helpful too.
Right. A question for you. I think it's important what you shared about the BAU and identifying those dedicated resources that can support the transformation efforts because they have the knowledge. They're the right people to do that. Are you backfilling those folks, or how have you managed adapting to disruptions? Absolutely, an implementation is a large disruptor. But while doing that, maintaining business operations, safeguarding your people, assets, thinking about brand. Are you backfilling when you identify those dedicated resources? How are you managing that workforce?
Yeah, it's a good question. I thought we did a good job of this up front, and that is kind of predicting what level of resource dedication we would need from the BAU teams, building that into the budget. So knowing that they couldn't just absorb it within the current capacity and instead adding dollars to the expected implementation budget to pay for the backfills. And so we've used a combination of third-party offshore as well as a captive offshore group that we have within the company to absorb BAU work that we could easily move over. And
Right.
we've opened up, 10 to 15 different resources that now have been able to be fully dedicated because of that, and done it at a cheaper cost. And now once we implement, we'll have some flexibility in terms of what do we need on an ongoing basis.
I think that's really great advice. I can tell you I've been involved with a number of ERP transformations where the burden on the BAU is so great. And I think having it kind of goes back to that thoughtfulness of planning upfront and anticipating what you'll need. I know you probably have some other industry specific regulations that are coming, or ongoing talent or workforce topics. Anything else that's kind of forefront for you right now, or is it kind of all hands on deck with your ERP implementation?
Expense management's been important lately. A faster close as part of the ERP is one other thing that we're trying to pursue within our regulatory requirements. We have a European parent company, and so we've had to work through CSRD implementation. It's been a group-led effort that we've stayed close to. Recently, we've tried to stand up a more dedicated, smaller team within the financial reporting area that would be focused on, call it all of non-financial reporting requirements, which would include ESG type regulations and understanding data elements and controls and everything along those lines. So that's been a focus area. I feel like talent management's always there, developing people, keeping people engaged.
Brent, this has been a really wonderful conversation with you, and hearing about your journey and your history. I think it's really interesting. All right. So, Brent, I like to close these out with some hot seat questions. So, first question, what is your favorite sport and why?
Golf, because I like to play, but I'm not the best. It's fun. Golf, it's fun. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Which time of year do you prefer?
Summer.
Summer. Well, yeah, you're playing the most golf in the summer.
That's right. Yeah. Maybe they're connected.
If you could learn a skill or talent, what would it be?
I told my son my New Year's resolution is to be a better gamer.
I love it. Early bird or night owl?
Early. I'm asleep by 10, awake at 6. Yeah, I can't sleep past 6. Yeah.
That one is my favorite question. And I don't know why I find that one so fascinating. I am absolutely an early bird, always have been from when I was very young. But yeah, I'm the same. Okay, last question here in 10 seconds or less. What does it mean to you to be a resilient leader?
Being a resilient leader to me is leveraging the resources you have in your own, personal style in order to get through obstacles and accomplish goals. There's a million ways to do that. I choose to leverage my network and my team and to try to gather information in a way that makes sense to me and present it in a simple, concise way.
I think that absolutely is a resilient leader. Well, Brent, I thank you so much for taking the time and spending it with us here today. It's been a pleasure to have you on and have enjoyed our discussion. So thank you.
Likewise. Thanks, Katie. Appreciate it.
Wrapping up today's conversation, Brent's profound insights into finance and accounting have truly showcased his dedication to continuous improvement and adaptability, essential traits in our ever-evolving business world. Brent's journey through the multifaceted world of finance, from his roots in accounting, have been nothing short of inspiring. His commitment to lifelong learning, whether through studies or real-world experiences, positions him as a leader who values growth and innovation. His pragmatic approach to leadership, underscored by leveraging team strengths and fostering a culture of open communication, exemplifies resilience in navigating transformations and challenges. We hope Brent's story encourages you to embrace challenges with a mindset of curiosity and courage. Thank you for being part of this insightful discussion on resilience in leadership. Until next time, when we'll hear more from leaders like yourself on their resilient journeys. Thank you and see you then.